All right, super. So, guess we can get started.
Is Greg there too?
Yes, Greg is here too.
Good.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Keshav.
Hi, Greg.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Greg, Keshav, nice to have you here. We have an interesting setup today where Keshav is speaking through Nathan's Clubhouse account through a Zoom connection. So hopefully, bear with us if there's any trouble. Hopefully we can get through and have the conversations we usually do. To those in the room, so just letting you know also that we are recording this. So if you come up to the speakers area at any point to ask a question or join the conversation, just know that you're consenting that we can use your voice and image in the recording. So welcome everybody to the Longevity Biotech Show, where we interview scientists, entrepreneurs, thought leaders advancing the state of the art in longevity biotechnology and how this is going to impact us and the world in the decades directly ahead. We're also going to try to inspire you to find a way to contribute as well through the stories and insights that our guests provide. So for today, we're going to do our standard format, a few minutes of intro from the people on the panel, about half an hour prepared Q&A, and then audience questions until the closing of the hour, with a few minutes for a lightning round at the very end. And then after the first hour, for anyone who can stay on, we usually do an open-ended chat for as long as we can go. So, Nathan, you want to start with an intro for Keshav, I guess, on your end, and then Greg and...
Yeah, so I'll just introduce myself quickly. So my name is Nathan. I'm the founder of longevitymarketcap.com, and there's an associated newsletter there. Basically, it's a once a week sort of roundup of all the interesting developments in longevity biotechnology. I'm also the founder of longevitylist.com, and that is a jobs board and sort of database for companies and investors in the longevity space. So today we have Yuva Biosciences, and we have the co-founders, Greg Schmergel and Keshav Singh. It's a real treat and pleasure to have them here. Keshav is a professor at University of Alabama at Birmingham, and he's also one of the leaders in mitochondrial research. But I'll let him introduce himself. So Keshav, can you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Sure. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Nathan and Robert, for having us here. So I will just start, my introduction from where I began. I did my undergraduate in India in microbiology, fell in love with cricket. So I went to Australia to do my PhD there in marine biology. And during that time, I came down to Woodsall to work on some marine animals, and ended up falling in love in that area and came back to do my postdoc. From there, my journey began to mitochondria when I joined the faculty at Johns Hopkins. And at the time, mitochondria was not very much appreciated. In fact, the notion was that we know everything what we need to know about mitochondria, and that is mitochondria produce energy. But I had certain other ideas, but it was very difficult at the time. So I ended up starting a Society for Mitochondrial Research and Medicine in the United States and India, basically trying to bring scientists and physicians together to think about mitochondria and mitochondrial diseases. I also started a mitochondrial journal, then moved up to Roswell Park, where I was working on photodynamic therapy and other related mitochondrial function and dysfunction in cancer. Moved to UAB as Bill Harwood and our chair, continued to work on mitochondria. And in between, I wrote 3 books to promote mitochondria. And I think I will stop there.
Great. Thanks, Keshav. Greg?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Greg Schmergel, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. So started several companies in a variety of fields, all related to technology. So nanotechnology, one internet company, a research services company focused on technology, and in the last couple of years have become very excited about the field of longevity.
Greg, you're getting very soft or breaking up. Is that just me? Nathan, are you picking that up as well?
Yeah, having a little trouble hearing Greg at the end, but I guess we'll continue.
Oh, sorry, I'm moving closer to the router to see if that helps.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
great.
that's much
Excellent.
better.
Okay, so great. Thank you for your introduction. I guess we'll get started. So the first part of our discussion, we'll just sort of look at the foundational science and the discovery behind Yuva Biosciences, and then I'll maybe ask you a couple questions about what the commercialization effort for Yuva Biosciences looks like. And then the rest of the discussion will just sort of chart out the path of your journey from the start of the company to where you are now, so that we can give a sort of a template or a sort of step-by-step process for other people who are thinking of starting companies. Maybe they're academics just like Keshav looking for a co-founder, or maybe they're a serial entrepreneur like Greg who's interested in longevity but needs to find a co-founder. So I think it's just a great idea to just share your journey and just give an example for others to follow. So the first question will be for Keshav, I guess. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the foundational science behind Yuva Biosciences.
Absolutely. So we started, as I mentioned earlier, trying to identify the role of mitochondria in cells and organs, and what happens when mitochondria don't work, and what diseases it relates to. So about 10 years ago, I was thinking about how we can do that. In cells, where we do in vitro studies, where we can grow cells and knock down mitochondrial function, and we can do a lot of studies. But one other thing was that how do we identify the role of mitochondria in organs and in whole animal? And given that the mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the hallmark of aging and is also a hallmark of cancer. So our idea was to knock down mitochondrial function in a whole animal and see what happens, whether they get cancer or get show aging phenotype. And so we designed a method to knock down mitochondrial DNA. Therefore, we can disrupt mitochondrial function. And when we did this experiment, what we were actually excited about is that within 4 to 6 weeks, we see the mice show wrinkle and they show loss of hair. We did other studies, and we will continue, and I'll talk about that later. But that got really excited to figure out, well, how mitochondria may be playing a role in skin wrinkles and hair loss. And then I think we published this story in 2018, and it led to quite a bit of publicity around the world. It was covered in many magazines and Newsweek and so forth. And that led to discovering Greg. And I think Greg can tell you more about how we got together to form Yuva Biosciences.
Sure. So Keshav's work on the mouse model that he just mentioned was covered very, very extensively in the press worldwide in over 100 languages and plenty of different publications, because it was the first time that anyone had shown that direct link between mitochondrial dysfunction and skin aging and hair loss. And so I had already become excited about the longevity field, and therefore got in touch with Keshav. And a key question, of course, was now that link has been proven, is there a way to prevent and reverse hair loss and skin aging? And Keshav had, in fact, been already working on screening different compounds to see if they could prevent and reverse the hair loss and skin aging, and had already discovered some very promising compounds. One of which is now the lead compound, had in fact dramatic results in almost fully preventing the hair loss and skin wrinkles, and having a strong and visible effect in reversing it. So based on that, it made a lot of sense, of course, to start Yuva Biosciences and to march towards commercializing that product. And Keshav had been looking at both natural compounds and drugs that had been previously approved for other indications with other delivery mechanisms. And the lead compound is actually a natural compound, so that allows us to plan to go to market initially as a cosmeceutical, a science-based cosmetics product, which means that it does not have to go through the lengthy FDA approval process, and can go to market relatively quickly. So we're actually starting human trials on that lead compound over the next couple months, and we'll have results in the early fall. And in the meantime, we're also working on building up the pipeline of compounds that can improve mitochondrial function, and have already identified several more compounds that are successful in cell-based assays that have been developed in the Yuva Biosciences lab in Birmingham by our principal scientist, Leo Aguirre. And we are working on building up that pipeline, both for the skin and hair indications, but there's also substantial promise in other areas, because mitochondrial dysfunction is the cause of a large number of diseases, and is a contributing factor to an even larger number of diseases and disorders, and of course to aging itself. But I can turn it back to Keshav to talk more about some of the other promising areas that such as ovarian aging, that he's been studying in his lab, and has already made some exciting publications about.
Sure. So so you can imagine that the role of mitochondria is not going to be restricted to what we were told in high school and undergraduate or other, that is the powerhouse of the cell. It is the powerhouse of the cell. There is no doubt about it. But that powerhouse meant for heart, lung, and brain. But there are other subtle functions of mitochondria which has been unexplored. So what we found in the platform we have developed, that these mice show ovarian aging or premature aging, and these are also unfertile. So what we are looking at is that taking the same approach, where we have shown early on that when we reverse mitochondrial function by genetic means or by using a pharmacological or natural approaches, can be reversed or slow down or mitigate some of this phenotype. So ovarian aging is one we are working on, and as many of you may know, that the ovaries age faster than the actual age of the woman, and there are 5 million mitochondria in human oocytes, and they tend to vary in large number. So there is a very interesting mitochondrial biology related to ovarian aging, something we have published very recently. And then we're looking at the prostate aging. So as men get older, you see the prostate gets large and bigger, and obviously the large number of people who are about 65 or so develop prostate cancer as well. So we're looking at that aspect as well. And again, in prostate, what you have is an early literature, which we are revisiting, that prostate have a very, very different mitochondrial biology. They seem to have what we call truncated TCA cycle. So half of that energy producing system isn't there. So then one can ask, well, what does it mean in terms of prostate biology? So these are things in works. We have other ideas as well, which we will continue. But I think first thing, obviously, as our focus is the skin wrinkle and hair loss. And they are obviously be doing for vanity reason, but you also find that chemotherapy-induced hair loss and skin wrinkles is also very prevalent in this response to treatment of various different cancers.
Yeah, totally. I really like the idea of targeting skin aging first, mainly as a way to just convince people that it might be possible to reverse aging, because I don't think that's something that most people believe is even possible, right? And if you can reverse the skin because it's so visible and so obvious, I think that will have like a large impact in just changing the public perception of what's possible in longevity biotechnology. But
Absolutely.
yeah, totally. So I think I guess my next question is going to take a look at sort of the process. So we've already looked at the foundational science, how it started. We know what Yuva Biosciences is doing right now to commercialize and all your efforts, which are really promising. But let's start filling in the gaps. How did you get from point A to point B? So oh, so hold on. So then, yeah. So you started. You have science. Keshav met up with Greg. You guys decided to form a company. What was the next step? Like, how do you create a company?
Sure.
Greg,
So I mean, the easy part is, of course, legally forming a corporation. But then there are a number of key steps that we had to go through. So, first of all was, of course, securing a license to Keshav's patent and an IP from the university. So we had to work with UAB to secure that license. We also, of course, had to start raising money. So we started a seed round, and we initially targeted $1 million for that seed round. We're actually now 75% oversubscribed, so we're at $1.75 million raised in the seed round, with a number of other investors who are potentially interested in joining it at the moment as well. So we'll probably go even higher than that. And then, of course, we had to open up our own company lab, which we did at the Innovation Depot in Birmingham, which is just down the street from Keshav's lab at UAB. So it's easy for him to walk back and forth between them. And then locate staff for the lab. So we fortunately had a number of very, very highly qualified scientists in the mitochondrial field who knew Keshav or knew his work or both. And so we had a lot of great applicants and were able to hire very well qualified principal scientist with 20 plus years of experience in the field to run the lab. And then we also added to the team a fantastic director of operations and strategy, Saksham, who has a lot of experience in the in the medical field and worked previously in a medical VC up in the Cambridge area. And on top of that, then we also added a distinguished advisory board, which includes Aubrey de Grey, includes Frank Jaksch, who's the founder and executive chairman of Chromadex, which is a public nutraceutical company that makes a product called True Niagen, whose sales have really taken off in the last few months. And then two very distinguished professors in the aging field, Bob Navio and Matt Caberline. So that's a quick summary. There's even more to it than that, of course, but we had to kind of pull together all the pieces to get to where we are now, which is again beginning the human trials shortly.
Yeah, great. Maybe I can dig in a little deeper. So that the securing the patent from, I guess, the tech transfer office at University of Alabama, what was that like?
So that with any university, it's a lengthy process. So you have to plan for months of discussions, and fortunately, UAB is very supportive of startups spinning out of UAB, and so in that case, there's strong support and interest in making it happen from UAB and from the tech transfer office. And actually, Yuva even won UAB Faculty Startup of the Year. But that's a process that takes a while, and of course requires experienced legal support as well from a lawyer who's experienced in license agreements and ideally has done university license agreements before. So we had that in place as well. And of course, I've done a number of university license agreements before. So that's a relatively involved process.
Yeah. Can you? I don't know if you can share like numbers or anything like that because maybe it's confidential. But like, how long did it take? Was it maybe if I'm a founder who wants to do something similar, how much capital should I have before trying to attempt to license this deal? Maybe you could share those details.
So I mean, I think it took generally it takes somewhere on the order of 6 to 12 months. So I think in this case we're of that in terms of time. So you have to be ready to spend a decent amount of time at it, and it doesn't require that much capital, just the legal fees in order to secure the license. So that can vary a lot, but certainly in the thousands to low tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, great. So you have the science, you've secured the license from UAB, and then what happens next? I know you mentioned getting like lab space and all that, but did you guys have a plan about how much money you would need to start building up the company from that point on? What were you guys thinking at that time?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So we worked. Keshav and I worked on a detailed financial plan, and our original plan, required $1 million, and then of course over time as the interest in the seed round exceeded our expectations, and we ended up raising more than that then let us accelerate our plans and move faster to the human trials than expected, as well as moving to expand the pipeline of compounds faster than expected as well. But we had a baseline plan, and then fortunately we're able to go above it and invest more.
Great, yeah. So maybe I'll ask Keshav this question. So coming as an academic founder and starting basically a biotech company, when you're looking to de-risk this idea and figure out, okay, what kind of scientific um, experiments or trials we need to do to continue progress in our company. Maybe you could share some of your thinking in the early days after the company was formed, and what kind of scientific work you were thinking about that needed to be completed.
Yeah, absolutely. So being an academic, what we learn is how to go to NIH and get some money and to continue our research. So obviously the initial goal was, okay, I've done the work and I know it's a good science and it should get funded. And NIH obviously, for whatever reason, they think is too simple or whatever. So it was not appreciated, to put it this way. So I was more and more determined to find and close the loose ends to figure out what I do more science wise in order for it to make it one understand the mitochondrial biology in skin wrinkle and hair loss and other things, and see if I can find certain compounds, because when you come to biotech, these type of approaches are pretty standard. That okay, I can genetically reverse it. So people say, so what? You manipulated few genes and you got this thing back. So we did a small targeted screening with some educated science behind it, and long and behold, we found this compound. So that led me to think, well, why worry too much about NIH funding now when we can do it better and bigger way? We still can get some money from SBIR, but that gave us the confidence. And I had experience, so far in the context of non-profit things I founded, like Mitochondrial Research and Medicine Society in US and India, and I've been seeing this happening over and over again, where you come close to finding something in academic field and then sort of things disappear. So my approach was to go, full throated response to what we have developed, and start a company. And I was so glad when Greg came along and given all the expertise he has. I thought, well, that's the way to go it. But I think, as you mentioned, the science need to be solid to de-risk, obviously the investment people make, and obviously there are going to be some hiccups on the way because we're transferring from our knowledge from mice to humans. But we have a way to figuring that out, and the test is on the way to figure out what we need to do and how we can make this happen.
Yeah, great. So Greg mentioned that Yuva is doing some clinical trials to test your compound as a cosmeceutical. So maybe, Greg, you could share with us this whole process of finding a CRO to do this kind of work, because that's something that's not taught, I think, in most sort of fields.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, no. So we had to look at a number of different CROs and compare them, and there was a wide range that we looked at, both in terms of cost and also in terms of expertise in the field. So we ended up settling on two CROs that are experts specifically in one in hair and one in skin. So they're enough different CROs that they're actually specialists and subspecialists and of course so we ended up picking the ones that are specialized in the exact area that we need. And so that was an important process to make sure that we have the right partners and we'll get solid data while also being at a reasonable cost, of course. And we obviously can't afford to spend millions of dollars on it.
True. Can you share roughly how much a trial like this would cost if I was an entrepreneur trying to do something similar?
We can't, because unfortunately our agreements with them are confidential. So we can't share those details publicly.
Of course, yeah, good point. Okay, so let's continue onwards. So I guess my next question would be for Keshav. So one of the interesting things about longevity biotechnology startups is they're trying to reverse aging, right? But aging isn't like a approved indication. by the FDA. So usually, what happens is you have to choose some sort of other, approved indication that is related to aging. So I was just wondering, other than, of course, hair loss and skin aging, how do you decide on what the best indication should be for your compound or your mechanism?
Yeah, so as you can see, we are targeting more at the health span than the lifespan, and obviously, if we have good health, lifespan will extend. So what we are looking at is how we can improve mitochondrial function. So as people age, and in certain tissues, what you find that there is a loss of mitochondrial function, and the one we easily targetable is the depletion of mitochondrial DNA. So over 10-year period, you lose about 10 molecules of mitochondrial DNA. Why and how I don't think people know, but that's been reported in large epidemiology studies from National Institute of Aging. So the goal is wherever in whatever tissue there is a dysfunction, and easily targetable thing for us is the mitochondrial DNA content. That actually, when you reduce that, leads to dysfunction. So we have a cell-based assay. We are doing that. Then obviously we can test that very quickly in the preclinical model. And now this platform we have, the beauty of the system is that we can target any tissue, any cell type in this mice. So we can go after not only skin, we can go after epidermis of the skin, we can go to fibroblasts of the skin, or we can go dermis or so forth. So I think it's not going to be all improving mitochondrial dysfunction cure for all, but for most tissues and aging-associated dysfunctions, I'm pretty optimistic that this thing will work. One thing I also wanted to mention is that besides the skin wrinkle and hair loss, we have published a paper and very strong evidence that as people age, they tend to get the hyper and hypopigmentation, which is described as senile lentigens. So you get the skin, and also and go out in sun, you get freckles. So what we discovered was that these mice also saw sign of senile lentigens. So you see hyper and hypopigmentation. That paper is out. So this will be another thing, we discovered first that there's a mitochondrial dysfunction associated with it. And now we will try to improve that as well. That could be simply due to exposure to UV, because mitochondrial DNA is not repaired by any mechanism which UV induces the damage. So we will be going after that as well. But at the end, I think it's improving the mitochondrial function is what I think the key is, or at least what we are doing.
Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about like pharmaceutical products and running a trial for like an FDA trial for a certain disease, how do you think about which indication in pharma that you would choose for these?
Yep. Yeah. So we have done targeted study of the FDA approved drugs, and one low-hanging fruit is the drugs which are improved for neurological disorders. So or something similar to it, and see whether we can find something interesting, whether that approved drug alone or in combination with what we are discovering can improve whatever that function may be in neurological disorders, or including actually in cancer as well. But there are indications where some of the drugs seem to be working through the mitochondrial pathway. They just don't know, and they are using it for treatment of different diseases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so moving along, I guess the next question I want to ask is for Greg. When you're raising money for a company like this, reversing aging, and it's kind of out there, I guess. So what was your strategy for, pitching investors? What kind of investors were you looking for? Maybe you can just tell us what that process was like.
Sure, definitely. So I mean, of course, we talked about reversing aging, but we also focused quite a lot on the near-term product potential, and very specifically on the case for those near-term products. So, slowing down aging is a, again, a much longer term proposition, but the cosmeceutical products that we've talked about for skin and hair have the potential to go to market in the, in the very short term. So once results are seen in the human trials, basically. So those are products that can go to market very quickly and that have a huge market, because even though it's not curing a disease or curing aging, people spend tens of billions of dollars a year on making skin look better and making hair look better. Plus, it's an area where there is a need for science-based products that are effective, because most anti-aging skin creams don't really do much and are mostly based in marketing, but again still sell tens of billions of dollars a year, and most of them have the same ingredients that they've had for 10 or 20 years. So it's been quite a while since anything new and effective was really discovered. And the same thing in hair loss. The two incumbents in the field are minoxidil, which is Rogaine, and finasteride, which is Propecia, and they've both been around for a long time, and both of them have drawbacks in terms of side effects, which limit their market size. So there's a lot of need in both of those markets, unmet need, and a product that can be applied topically without side effects would clearly have a tremendous market. So that's something that, again, that the investors are very interested in, and seeing that there is potential for return in the short term, while working on the longer term, larger goals of slowing down aging in other tissues and improving health span, and targeting other indications that will take longer.
Hmm. Yeah. So one of your investors is Longevity Tech Fund, which we actually had on the show a couple of weeks ago. But I was just wondering, in terms of the types of investors that approached you or you approached them, was it mostly people who were interested in longevity? Was it biotech? Was it cosmetic companies? Like, who were you pitching? I guess.
Right. So it's really a mix. It's really a mix. So we certainly talked to a number of people and funds in the longevity field, and of course, ended up mutually deciding on Longevity Tech Fund, which is a great fund, as I'm sure you heard a couple weeks ago. We've also talked extensively to people and funds in the cosmetics field and in the biotech field as well. So it's really a mix, because we kind of sit at the intersection of all three of those. So it's not just one, but a mix of all three.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I guess moving on, we just have a couple more minutes before we're going to open the floor for audience questions. But I just wanted to know, uh, is there anything that we can do to help you guys? Is there something that you would like to put out there to the audience to maybe some, if you're hiring or if you're also raising more money, or anything that you would like to uh, put out as a notice? I guess now is the time to just to say it.
Sure. So yeah, we're not currently hiring, but in the future we will be again. Especially for people in the mitochondrial science field, and of course, once the product is coming out, then people with experience in the cosmeceuticals field as well. we do get lots and lots of inquiries from people about whether they can join the human trials. Unfortunately, the answer is no. It's they're being conducted in a specific location with specific criteria, and so we can't we can't add anybody to those, but we're very happy to see all the interest from people emailing us through the website and coming up to us on the street, even asking if they can join the human trials. So that's, again, I think, a great sign of the demand and need for the product. But yeah, so I mean, we're certainly we're still open to a little more investment in the seed round, and to the extent that anybody has any connections to companies, especially in the cosmeceuticals field, we love introductions in that area.
Great. Keshav, is there anything that you would like to put out there?
So I don't think I have much to add, other than that as a scientist, I can say that mitochondria matters. People should take care of their mitochondria as nicely as they can.
Okay, great. So we'll open up for questions now. Robert, did you want to take over? And then maybe at the end, in 20 minutes or so, after the questions, we'll just wrap it up with a couple lightning round questions to close the talk today. So, Robert, you want to moderate?
Yeah, sure. I do also have a number of questions myself, but I'll wait for anyone who wants. Please just raise your hand. We'll bring you up. Once again, we're recording this, so if you do come up, you're consenting that we can use your voice and image in the recording. But please come up and feel free to ask whatever's on your mind to our guests here. This is a very interesting background, by the way, Greg and Keshav. I confess that Nathan has been leading this. Of course, I didn't know very much about your company or what you've done prior to the call. So I have a question, I guess, if nobody's coming up. You guys are based in Birmingham, Alabama. Do you see any challenges or differences of establishing a biotech company there as opposed to one of the major hubs like San Francisco, Boston, San Diego? And is the remote work trend impacting?
Greg, you want to comment on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, we made that decision before the pandemic and before the remote work trend. So really, I mean, really, we saw a number of pluses in being. First of all, of course, it's where Keshav and his lab are, so that's essential. And we were able to open up the company lab just down the street from Keshav's university lab, and one of our clinical trial, not clinical trial, but one of our research CROs is down the street as well. So it's actually a very good area that has a lot of effort and growth in the entrepreneurship area. So the company lab is headquartered at the Innovation Depot, which is a great startup site with lots and lots of startups in Birmingham. And so we've found many advantages to being in the Birmingham area, and in terms of recruiting, the quality of life and cost of living is very attractive. So Keshav can comment more on that, but so that also helps to have people move to a place that is not as crowded and expensive as the hubs.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I have moved around from Boston to Baltimore to Buffalo to Birmingham, so it's all bees. So I have a very good taste of what big city like Boston or Baltimore feel like. But I think what we find is that it's a small town, but it's a big university. The university is very well known. and we have a mixture of expertise if we need to go out and hire some people or get some collaboration on behalf of the company. That's also very easy. And then having the Southern Research Institute, which is one of the only nonprofit Southern profit drug discovery institute in the country. So having to work with them and getting things moving in our pipeline, that also very attractive. In terms of living, you can, and that's what the selling point is. In fact, when I came to Birmingham, I wasn't looking for a job, but then when I came here, they are back of Appalachian Mountains, only 3 hours drive from here to the beach. So, and given the science university, I think that's seemed to work pretty well for biotech startups and as well as in recruiting.
Yeah, thanks. Can you clarify? You said there was a nonprofit institute, one of the only ones in the country. Can you just repeat what it was?
So Southern Institute is the nonprofit drug discovery institute.
Southern Institute.
Southern Institute. It's called Southern Research Institute, SRI.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. So we do have a couple of people on the panel just joined here. Over at UCSF, we have Andrew Brack. Welcome to the stage. And what would you like to ask?
Great. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Nathan. And nice to meet you, Greg and Yuva. At the start of the talk, we were talking about mitochondrial function. I guess could you drill down a little bit on what you mean by mitochondria and how you're thinking about that through the company lens? Is it on energetics, fusion, fission? What sort of aspects of mitochondria do you think are going to be important for aging?
So obviously, energetic part is one big element of that. But we certainly look at the fission and fusion, and when it comes down to looking at those enzymatic activities, so the total overall health of the mitochondria can be, as you may know, measured by the OXPHOS measurement. But I think and also the senescence, which we want to improve senescent cells by restoring mitochondrial function. So, I mean, mitochondria may mean a lot of things. And eventually what we want to do is look at overall health of the mitochondria, look at the fission and fusion, look at the mitochondrial DNA content, look at the activity measurement, and then we go down further to figure out what else it might mean in terms of the retrograde regulation to the nucleus, then is outside the cell, and so forth. So we have a plan. First, we look at the restoration at the OXPHOS level, obviously the energetic level, and the fission and fusion part of it, and then we go further, and obviously the senescence as well.
Great, thank you. Could I ask another question while I'm on? So obviously, aging, as you mentioned, mitochondria is one of the hallmarks of aging, and sort of it's certainly gained popularity in its both understanding and importance of aging. How do you see this as a company of sort of maintaining a competitive advantage with all the other companies that are sort of working on mitochondria and aging? Or do you not concern? How do you view that as a sort of is maintaining an advantage or just getting there faster?
Well, obviously we are here to compete, and we have certain advantages with the platform we have developed and continue to work and improve on it. But what I see that our competitors, and they are not particularly so they are looking at longevity, and longevity is a different beast altogether. So, for example, David Sinclair company, they look in the biosciences, they have one portfolio looking at how mitochondria can improve longevity. Stealth Bio looking at mitochondrial diseases. Some of them are rare diseases. Then you have Mitochondrics looking at it's a neurological disorder, I believe Alzheimer. So there's a whole different aspect of in this area where people are looking at it. And I think there's a room for almost everybody because this got started just 4 or 5 years ago. So, but we have, the advantage we have is
yeah, exactly. I think this is still a new a new area. If you look at other startup areas like software as a service, you might in some areas you'll find 50 companies, 50 startups trying to do almost exactly the same thing. Whereas in this longevity field and specifically in mitochondrial science, obviously we're all very excited that the field has grown a lot over the last few years, but it's still at the beginning stages. So there isn't much competition yet. We're the only one we know of taking our approach, and in the future, we certainly hope the mitochondrial science field continues to grow and have more startups, and the efforts of people like Nathan should help with that. So we really see that at this stage of growth, it's just beneficial to everybody. The more startups are formed, and the more attention that is brought to the field.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Greg. I think there's lots of space. And it seems so far that everyone is sort of very supportive of each other as well, which is really nice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. And next we have Kamen Cholev from the UK. And I have a question actually following that relates to what Andrew said. Kamen, welcome. What's your question?
Thank you. And Greg and Keshav, thank you very much for the discussion so far. It's very interesting. I was interested in the following. You mentioned that you are looking to position yourself in the cosmeceutical space, or the products that you will hope to launch early on will perhaps be in that market or near it. I was wondering how you see the existing marketing communication in that space, which, to my impression anyway, tends to already include scientific sounding or quasi-scientific claims often. And of course, it's very varied, depending on whether, I suppose, one looks at products from big players, from large cosmetics manufacturers with large scientific budgets, through to new entrants, through to perhaps niche scientific players. But do you plan to differ in tone when hopefully you launch your product from the rest of the space, and in what way? And how far do you expect scientific results to be front and center of what you will communicate, without, of course, being in the way? And do you think you might be in any way held back by the history of that field, and by the fact that these claims are currently perhaps cheapened by the lack of genuine science behind them, and the assumption, in British terms, I suppose this would be described as a mere advertising puff, at least in legal contexts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are aware of that. In some of those cases, I have watched it closely, what's happening and how it's shaped up. And as you're saying, quasi-science. Our goal is to differ from those those companies and the products, and do the real science. And obviously, when it's setting up to do the clinical trials, or preclinical, clinical trials, and then we go to the market. And I think I will let Greg more elaborate on that. Greg, are you there?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, Keshav. So yeah, I mean, your question is very, very valid, and of course, we plan to differentiate ourselves, again, with deep scientific backing. But as you noted, we're up against a lot of marketing puffery. So we plan to take a couple approaches. I mean, one is that we are considering two different routes to market. One is with bringing a product to market ourselves, and a second is by partnering with large companies in the field that do have large marketing budgets, and licensing the technology to them so that they can bring it to market with their channels, and that would help cut through the noise. in that case. Plus, I think there's a growing awareness among consumers of to to look for truly effective products, and we've even started talking to people in the skincare field who have started to do their own research into mitochondrial science and understand mitochondrial function, and are starting to become interested in products that can help improve mitochondrial function. So I think there is a desire for real science-based products, but of course you're right. It is a challenge to fight against fight against the products that are only based on puffery.
And perhaps if I may, just by way of follow-up, so do you imagine this to emerge, and perhaps it has already emerged, and I'm just not sufficiently informed, but do you envisage that there will emerge a new category that will be the sort of scientific cosmetics? And I was just looking up earlier as I was listening to you, the FDA's statement on its website that the term cosmeceutical has no meaning under the law. Do you feel that any such emergence of a category will be helped or not helped by express regulation in the US or anywhere else?
Yeah, so that's correct. So cosmeceutical has no legal meaning at the current time, and cosmeceuticals are unregulated. I think that you're right. If more regulations emerge and they must be backed by more scientific, that would only help us. Given that we are already doing that scientific study and doing the preclinical and clinical trials, so the fact that we have that system set up and are already doing it that would only help us to the extent that was required. At the moment it's optional, and we're the feedback we've gotten is that it's more unusual, the extent of trials that we're doing.
Thank you. That's very helpful. If I may just say, it's probably a situation in kind of aging and longevity. It seems like one common and well-founded gripe is that the regulators may not be that the existing toolbox of regulators is just not very well suited to longevity products and research. But in your case, you might have the opportunity of encouraging regulators to create new regulation that will suit your particular area.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, thanks, Cameron. I'm afraid we are very close to the top of the hour. So, Nathan, actually, maybe we should ask Keshav and Greg. Do you have a time to go a little bit over time, or shall we at least get the lightning round and wrap up the top of the hour?
I have no problem. I'll stay on. Not a problem.
Sure, it's okay.
Okay, Nathan. I guess we have a little bit more time for some more questions. Cameron, thanks for that. That's a very interesting point, and I guess coming from your more legal background, this sounds like an area that perhaps you and others with legal expertise can help in this capacity. Regulatory factors are a very big deal in the longevity, well, not just the longevity space, but the biotech generally, or biopharma generally. So yeah, absolutely, that's something that maybe other people in law can come in and make a difference here. If I may just add to this, the book Merchants of Immortality, I think by Stephen S. Hall, which documents or traces the history of most of the field, at least from around 1975 to 2000. Mike West is a central character in that book. The second half, almost the full second half of the book, from my recollection of reading it, is largely going into minutiae of the regulatory and legal aspects. It's actually kind of dry reading because it's so dense and deals with these issues. Myself, I have to go and reread that part after studying or educating myself on the regulatory aspects more. So it's a very big deal. If I can ask a follow-up question sort of to what Andrew was saying um, on what aspects of mitochondria do you think will be important, energetics, fusion, etc. And obviously that they're one of the hallmarks, and I think you even used the phrasing gaining in popularity. Can I ask Keshav or Greg also, if you know, is there, to your knowledge, any example of a sort of roadmap for research and development in the mitochondrial therapeutics domain? Also, there's an upcoming significant industry event at the end of the month, the mitochondrial targets. Is anyone going to be discussing something like that there?
Yeah, so I can comment on that. I've been working with Hanson Wade from last 6 months or so to develop that conference on mitochondrial targeted therapeutics. So we are presenting. Actually, I am talking about Yuva, and I'm also leading a symposium on coronavirus hijacking of mitochondria and how that leads to mortality in old age individuals and those who have secondary mitochondrial diseases like diabetes and things. So yeah, so that's going to be exciting, and there seem to be many of the mitochondria players from. That's where the Stealth Bio is, Cobar is, and many other companies there. So I'm looking forward to presenting. I think that's next 27th, 28th, 29th. So 27th is the one where I lead the mitochondrial hijacking part of the symposium and how that we can help improve the COVID-19, maybe long haulers in terms of looking at their mitochondrial function. So in terms of the, you asked about what is the most important function relevant to reversing aging or age related. And that's where I think it gets, and that's where I got in trouble when I started my career. Everyone used to think that, well, mitochondria equals energy and that's it, But mitochondria there are 256 different cell types, and mitochondrial function is different from different tissues. So, for example, when you have 5 million mitochondria in human oocyte, why there is so many of them? What do they do? What happens during the atresia? We don't know that. Then same thing in the context of structure and the function is different from different tissues. So if you look at the same mitochondria and astroglial cells, they seem to be triangular. What is the purpose of those triangular mitochondria? So there's a lot for us to learn, and I think the platform we have developed, we can at least get some answers. If we go cell type, specific cell type, knocking down the mitochondrial function, and then trying to explore what it means. So at the moment, what we're looking at is there are two types of tissues, hypertrophy and hypertrophy. So in this mouse model, we get something, the organ get bigger, and in one case it shrinks. So we're trying to figure out what that means in terms of the crosstalk between the mitochondria and the nucleus. So there's a lot more to learn. Certainly in the case of the skin, the energetics is part of it, but the signaling is one of the part of it. And one of the major players appears to be inflammation, which we published in 2018, that how that leads to certain types of inflammatory markers going up, which are obviously related to aging phenotype.
That's very interesting. So if I can just follow up here, did I hear that correctly? Sure. You said 5 million mitochondria in human oocytes?
Yeah.
Is it possible that the oocytes, if I'm not mistaken my biology here, the reason there are so many is because these are sitting dormant for many years until conception occurs, and so there's a very high redundancy. I remember some years ago at it was actually a Café Scientifique event where a researcher was discussing how one of the reasons for birth defects in older women, the children of older women, is that the chromosome separation at like shortly after conception doesn't occur completely or as completely, and so leads to mutations in the chromosome and other such things. And this is driven by the mitochondria not, the separation machinery not getting enough energy, not getting enough input. Somehow it's like, it's kind of like a battery sitting on the shelf for many, many years. It's not going to have as much juice as one that's been freshly manufactured and is used relatively quickly. So perhaps the reason for the very high mitochondrial count in oocytes is that it's attempting to provide redundancy.
Well, very, very likely, but in the context of direct proof, because there are a lot of hypotheses that this can happen, but there is no direct proof of why there are so many and what they really do. One direct proof we provided in the business many years ago, as you just talked about, that the children of older women. And you have Down syndrome and others. So what we shown was that where we can disrupt mitochondrial function, you lead to this, and this is all done in cells. So take it with a grain of salt, that it leads to chromosomal aneuploidy. So you have loss and gain of chromosomes, and that was driven by SMC protein, which is the structural maintenance of chromosome, and that particular protein requires, as you mentioned, requires energy. So ATP is certainly required for the segregation of chromosome, and there are proteins which are highly demanding of ATP. So that's likelihood that happens. But we need obviously a good model system, a good cellular system, and then we look at how we can go after screening some of the drugs to find out how we can fix some of these things.
Very interesting. If I can follow this up, if anyone has any questions, please come up. There is a very interesting idea that is being pursued by at least one other company, Centara, I think that's the name, over in Switzerland, that was recently formed, and they are pursuing the idea potentially of artificial chromosomes. So a question for you here. Has anyone thought of perhaps having artificial mitochondria?
I'm not. Well, yes, I have been thinking about it in many different ways. Yeah, but those are the at the moment we get more funding, we will branch out and go to the one is the cosmeceutical part, another go to the pharmacological part. And so there are those certainly I have ideas how we can do it.
So you've at least thought about this a little bit before. Obviously, right now it's still science fiction, but it's on your radar.
Exactly. But with all the new technologies, present and going to be in future, I think I would not be surprised that this can be done. Because I said there are some ideas how we can, make a biofactory.
All right, I do have more questions, but Nathan, do you want to anything more from your side, or comment, Andrew, anyone else in the room?
Actually, I do have a question for Keshav. Okay. So, Keshav, this is I believe Yuva is your first startup. Is that correct?
It is. I actually that's interesting. So I had a run on some of these things early on. So this is so many years ago. I had started a company called Genetic Odyssey. Talking about is 2000, and this was just like I was having fun how to figure out human migration, and if you give me your spit, I can tell you where you come from. And at the time, I was involved with I think National Geography and IBM were putting together, and it just didn't. I did not have Greg to help me out on that, so it was only became an academic exercise. We developed a software called Mitologia. It's still on my website. So basically going after the human migration, and after that you can follow diseases and all other things in population. But then came along Ancestry.com. So I said, okay, I think I'm done with it.
Okay, cool. So I guess this is the first startup that you've gone and built up and did all the funding stuff and
exactly, yeah.
So maybe I'll ask you, what was your impression of doing the doing the academic to industry switch before you did Yuva, and then maybe how has your opinion maybe changed, or maybe what surprises or new things did you learn about industry and biotech in general doing by when you built out Yuva?
So my, so even being in academic field, my interest has been very broad. Not only in the case of mitochondrial biology, just in general. So I always had a entrepreneurial interest to how we can make things happen, what we discover, and as you can see that when I started this Society for Mitochondrial Research and Medicine in India and all of that, that was a drive to make sure that we are heard and the patients are heard who have mitochondrial primary diseases and all that. But what I had to do is in the last 18 months since I met Greg, learn very quickly the biotechnology part of it, the business part of it, how to go about making things simple so your investors can understand and trying to expand that more when necessary, when they want to know more, as you had one of the questioner here. So, but I think at the moment for me, it was a need to drive. You need the urge to have the fire in the belly. And if you have that, I think that will continue and you will not sort of be disappointed or discouraged or depressed if one day of something happens. So I just have that. I'll say the drive, and having Greg as a partner has been very productive because Greg is serial entrepreneur, and he takes it to from where I can't, and so we're a good team. And I think that's probably very important in starting, especially what happens in academic field, that we go so much after how things work and all the mechanistic detail and everything else. And at the end of it, developing a product which does certain things. In this case, improve the skin wrinkle and hair.
Great. Yeah. So, Robert, do you have any other questions, or should we wrap up to the lightning round and then close for today?
I have many questions, but maybe I can put one last question for me for now. Earlier in the Q&A here, in the conversation here, we were discussing, or you were discussing the idea that Nathan, I think you brought this up. So it's good to focus on skin aging and things like that, because if rejuvenation of the skin can be done, that will convince people, be very convincing because it's visible. Is it possible that skin aging or any other particular aging in any other particular organ cannot be separated from the aging of the rest of the body as a whole? In other words, if so, then age reversal in just the skin is not really something that is feasible?
It's likely not, because so there are two approaches we are taking. One obviously was the whole animal knockdown of mitochondrial function, and you see the skin wrinkle and hair loss. Now with the going after particularly the skin specific knockdown of the mitochondrial function, we can separate that and answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, so that's it for me for now. Nathan, I guess go ahead with the closing questions, and we'll wrap it up for now.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's just do a quick couple of questions. These are lightning round questions, so you can try and answer in a sentence or less. And these are for Greg and Keshav. So number one question that we like to ask all the longevity biotech companies and the founders, how long do you want to live? Greg?
As long as possible, if it's in good health.
And Keshav?
I'll say that as long as I'm healthy. So health span is very important to go together with the lifespan.
Great, great. Yes, I totally agree. Okay, and the next lightning round question: who would you like to see us get on the Longevity Biotech show?
I would say Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. Yeah, very good.
He's
Bill Gates.
He's in the 60s, or
Wow.
he will make a good contribution.
I got to say, that's so far we've gotten Joe Biden as the highest profile aspirational guest. So yeah, this will give Joe Biden a run for his money.
That's yeah, I didn't know that. Can I get a copy or a link to the Joe Biden's
Oh no, yeah, no, we didn't get him yet. No, but we had Aubrey de Grey who requested, or when in response to this question said Joe Biden very quickly. You know, in other words, to try to get the administration to.
Oh, okay. Actually, I was going to say Aubrey de Grey, but I think Bill Gates and would be, and certainly I think.
Sure, and you could the head of the National Institute of Aging.
Yeah.
NIA. Okay.
Francis Collins.
All right, so these are big names. Keshav, we already had Aubrey on our show here, like I think a month ago. We got to put up the first very crude recording that we did, but you can listen to that. And the head of the Francis Collins, yeah, that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Felipe Sierra, former head of or involved with the NIA, while I was at Genentech, he was actually on campus at one point. He was doing a lot of work on his end to try to unify the basically all the different major focus areas of the NIH, because there are all these age-related diseases that have their own organizations and funding, and the one common thing amongst them is aging, and the NIA itself allocates a very small amount of comparatively amount of money to basic biology of aging, and much more to all of the age-related diseases themselves. So, yeah, Nathan, what do you think? Do we have a chance of getting Bill Gates on our show here?
I hope so. Bill Gates, from what I've heard, has been a little dismissive of the idea of longevity biotechnology. But he's a very big proponent of Alzheimer's research, which I think is very much just a subset of longevity.
Well, the mitochondrial piece, I think he's supporting mitochondrial. That's what I heard. But just going, and maybe not relevant what we're talking about, but when Obama was president, together with the Mitochondrial Disease Organization and us and others, we tried to convince that we need a institute for mitochondrial medicine. The idea behind was that when you go to a nephrologist and eye specialist and heart specialist, they tend to see those things, organs, as the one system only. And when it comes to the diagnosis of the mitochondrial diseases, and that actually relates directly to the aging-related diseases, as you see that aging-related disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, all of that. But many of the mitochondrial component doesn't care. It's not a one mitochondrial disease, it's a multi-system disorder in the primary mitochondrial patients. So we try to actually, or several thousand signatures and all that we had. But then, when Obama came in, it became, that economic, issues came on. And I think there is a need, and I would say even go further, we need a human energy project. And that will at least help in many different ways in terms of the longevity.
Can you repeat that just to make it a bit more clear? A human, what did you say?
Human energy project.
Energy project?
Yeah.
Human energy project.
Yeah, in a big way.
Okay, so this would be similar to the Brain Initiative?
Well, similar to the genome project.
Similar to the genome.
Our brain initiative, one can call it, but certainly the energy project will cut across all organs.
That's very interesting. That relates to what I was suggesting earlier with the roadmap. Could potentially be dovetail with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be mindful of the time since we've gone over by quite a bit. Greg and Keshav has been very generous with their time, and I just want to thank them again for coming on our show and sharing their experiences of building Yuva Biosciences. And as they said before, they're not hiring now, but maybe in the near future, they'll be looking to hire people who are familiar with mitochondrial science and the cosmetics industry. And we look forward to the results of their clinical trial and all the other developments in their pipeline. So once again, Greg and Keshav. Oh, yes, and I also forgot, they are currently raising money. I believe they said they're oversubscribed, but maybe if you have a chance, you can connect with them if you're interested. But yeah, so once again, thank you, Greg and Keshav, for coming on the show.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
And thanks, Robert. Really appreciate it. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Nathan, we don't have too many people left here, but just to let everyone know who's still listening, next week we will have Jean Hebert, researcher at it was Einstein in New York, right?
Yes.
So he'll be talking about his brain replacement work, and to stay informed for what's going on with our lineup, longevity news generally. Follow us on the app here, on Twitter, and you can sign up to Nathan's newsletter at longevitymarket.com. All right, so thanks again, Greg, Keshav, Nathan. I guess our little setup here worked reasonably well, given the need for Keshav to go on Zoom. Should we close out the room and then you can open it up? I'll close the recording also, and we can open up a separate one for the open-ended chat.
Yeah, let's close the room now, and we can always create one afterwards. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.